Hello and welcome to our Irish stew lesson. I am Melissa and I will be teaching you today how to make Irish stew. Now every Irish stew recipe is slightly different and mine isn't even the most traditional recipe for Irish stew, but it is pretty close. The first thing you're going to do before you start anything is you're going to take and make up your beef stock concentrate. So you will be having this in your box. There will be a little cup of this, it's about 1/4 of a cup. You put that in 6 cups of warm water and you're going to let that sit off to the side until the very end. And I'll show you what we use it for, but you want to make sure that that gets mixed up first so it has lots of time to incorporate. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to heat a heavy bottom stock pan or a Dutch oven. Really depends on you. Because I'm going to be throwing mine into a crock pot, I'm using this very large heavy bottom skillet. Again, it is up to you how you want this, but remember a stew is very thick and very deep. So in our heavy bottom stock pot here, what we're going to do is we're going to brown off of our meat. So there should be about 2 pounds of meat. It depends on the type of meat you use. You can use beef or you can use lamb. It's totally up to you. But we're using beef stew meat because it's the most accessible for you to be able to buy right at Meijer. And all you're going to do is you're going to lay these out in your pan and you want to leave enough space in between to be able to turn them. So when you flip this over, you put all of them in and you kind of want to just spread them out so that you have enough space to flip. Now the oil you use is completely up to you. Some people will prefer vegetable oil. Some people will prefer olive oil or canola. As long as it has a high enough smoke point where it's not going to start to burn. And you will do this over about a medium-high heat. And there it goes. Now you don't want to be flipping this constantly, you just want to flip it often enough so it doesn't burn, but you get a nice crust on all of your pieces. And another thing is do not season your meat until the end of the product, not at the beginning. All the searing is going to mostly wipe it off anyway, and it can oversalt your food if you're not careful. Now once your meat has a pretty good crust on it, you'll just pull it right back out. And you don't want to change your pan or anything because what you want to pull up in our next part is all those good brown bits from the bottom of your pan. So don't panic, you didn't burn anything. Now with that done, you're going to let that sit off to the side. And you are going to want to collect all of those juices. So a nice bowl that's big enough to hold both servings is your preferred place to put that. And then you're going to start with your next portion, which is a medium yellow onion. And you're just going to dump that right on in to all that's left over. And you're going to saute these for about 2 to 3 minutes or until they're translucent. And they will pick up all that lovely deliciousness off the bottom. Now while your onions brown, you do want to constantly be moving them around. It makes it so that they don't stick to the pan and they don't burn on one side. So your onions should have this kind of caramelized color to them. And once they do, you're going to add your garlic. Now there will be 2 cloves of garlic that you will grate. You just take your grater right to them. And you're going to dump those right in, and for about another minute or so, this is going to go in and you're going to toast that garlic up until it's brown, not to burn. If your stovetop is too hot as you're working, your garlic will burn and it can get kind of a funky taste to it. So you want to make sure that this is something that you're toasting lightly, you're not trying to burn it. And you'll do this for about another minute or so, or until it starts to get a nice caramely color to it. So now that that garlic's toasted, the next thing you're going to add in is your carrots. So these are 3 medium carrots and you're going to want to wash them, peel them, and dice them into about little quarter chunks. And you're just going to dump those right in. And you're just going to let those saute for about another minute or so. You're not looking to cook them, you're just looking to get some color and some flavor on them. So after you got some good color on your carrots, you're going to add in your leeks. Now with your leeks, you want to cut them. They're an onion. With your leeks, you're going to want to cut them into very small, thin slices. They are just like an onion. However, you want to split the leaves off the stalk and wash them thoroughly, as they do get a lot of dirt in them. So make sure they're very clean when you cut them. You're just gonna add those in and cook for about another minute. So when fully cooked down, or where do you want it, at least so it's got some color on it, you're gonna add in your butter. Now, I am using an Irish butter. You don't have to use an Irish butter, but you can pick an Irish butter up right from Meijer. And you're gonna let that melt. And you're just going to help it coat everything because that's gonna help the flour stick to everything. Okay, and so just to give you kind of a visual of what this should look like, you've got your garlic, your carrots, your leeks have started to wilt, your onions have a good color on them, and that's kind of what you want to see. So when all of your butter is melted down, you're going to take 1/4 cup of flour and you're going to shake it all over top of everything. As you can see, I have not added back in my meat yet, and there's good reason for that. And then what you want to do is you want to coat everything, and it should create a paste. Now you need the flour because that will act as the thickener to our stew. If you don't like a thick stew, you can leave the flour out and it will be more like a soup. But it should look like this after the flour is on. So as you can see, it's pretty coated. That's what you're looking for. And then you're gonna add back in your meat with all of the juices that came out of it. So you wanna make sure you add that all back in because that's where a lot of the flavor is at. And you're going to stir that right up. Now, it doesn't matter what way you do this step. I do this step right now. You can do it after, it's really up to you. But you're gonna add 3 tablespoons of tomato paste, not tomato sauce. It does need to be the paste. This creates a more robust flavor and it is a more silky texture. But it is totally up to you. If you do not like that, you can leave this out. It is a fully optional step. Once that's in, I just mix it in a little bit. I'm not looking to mix it in the full way. And then I'm gonna grab that beef stock. So this is 6 cups of beef stock from earlier where we used our concentrate to make it. And you're gonna pour that right over top. From here, you're just gonna start to mix that all in until it is nice and incorporated. And as this simmers, it will get thicker. So don't panic that you didn't add enough flour. Adding too much flour and you're gonna have kind of like a gravy to kind of a paste. So you don't wanna add a ton of flour because as the water simmers off, it's going to get thicker and darker and richer in flavor. Now that that's all mixed in, you're gonna grab your 5 to 6 yellow potatoes, and I would recommend using yellow potatoes. They are silkier in flavor and they're softer. These are the ones that make kind of a better stew potato, but if you like red potatoes, you're welcome to use them, but you will find that in your box is yellow potatoes. And you're going to cube these into 4s. So as you can see, they've been cubed out, and you're just gonna dump those right on in. And you're gonna mix them into your pot. So then for our final step is our seasonings. So what I have here are 2 bay leaves. You're gonna throw them right in the pot whole. 2 sprigs of thyme. And 2 pieces of parsley. And you throw that all in there and you leave it to mix. But you do wanna pull them out before you serve just because nobody wants to get a giant sprig of thyme in their dish. From here on, you allow it to simmer. Now, if you're doing this in a stock pot or you're doing this in a heavy bottom cast iron, you can let this simmer on the stovetop on low for about 2 to 3 hours. 2 hours should be, or until the carrots and the potatoes are fork tender and the meat falls apart. If you do this in a crock pot, you want to put it on low for 4 hours, if not 5. It depends on your crock pot. It depends on what kind of temp it runs at. But from this point forward, it's just a long, slow let it go. If you're gonna do it on the stovetop, just make sure you come back and stir it every 30 minutes or so that stuff on the bottom isn't burning. This is what your stew should look like for pretty much its final leg of the journey here. When it gets fully cooked, this sauce might become darker, it may be a little thicker. it depends on how much flour you've added and how much water has cooked off. If your sauce gets too thick, you can add a little water back into it to thin it back out. If it's too thin, you can add a little bit of flour into it to thicken it. It's totally up to you how you like that. But from this point forward, it's just cooking it and letting it do its job slow and low. And again, mixing it every 30 minutes so you don't burn the bottom. And that is how you make Irish stew.